Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Quality QuaranTIME. My name is Alex Vander Johnson. Can you guys believe that this episode marks a month of doing Quality QuaranTIME videos? I thought in honor of 1 month I would bring back a very special and popular guest, my mother. Today we're going to be talking about one of the greatest lessons that she's taught me is about roles and narratives and how they operate in relationships. It's really helped me sort of pinpoint what I'm feeling, what my emotions are, and what is maybe not working in a relationship. I think it's the success of a lot of the relationships I have in my life. So I'm going to talk to her about some of the different aspects, and hopefully it's useful for some of you guys who are watching. Hello! How are you?
Good, how are you?
That's a cute hoodie.
Thank you. Sporting the Atlanta Braves.
Yes, yes, yes. The hair's looking good. The lips.
I'm ready. It's showtime.
It's showtime. It's showtime. Can you believe it's been a month
No,
that I've been doing this?
no. I
Um,
love
how
so
are
fun.
how are you feeling about the show? What do you feel like is working? What's not working? What episodes have you loved?
Uh, well, I love seeing, obviously, from personal perspective, all your people. Whether I knew them or I didn't, I've heard of them,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's been really fun to hear their perspective. And just the wisdom of the young people is just so inspiring to me.
Mm.
I love that. I love to hear wise young people. It gives me hope, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Because
what, and I think maybe that's part of why I'm doing it too, is because I think, we see a lot of
old
not
people.
wisdom.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say
yeah,
stupidity. No, we see a lot of
yeah.
negative things in the news and a lot of negative messages, and so I thought maybe I could use this time to share some of the better messages that I hear on a daily basis and find a way of
Mhm.
promoting those, you know?
Yeah, that's what I'm really loving. And I love seeing where people live.
Yeah.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, because we can't go out, so it's sort of nice to like do a little.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit of like who lives behind those curtains down my street kind of,
Yes.
and what does their house look like inside,
Yeah.
and this so reflects their personalities, and I love the openness in which they're sharing their opinion.
Yeah. I know. I've actually been very surprised that people have been so open with showing me around.
Yeah,
It's been really nice.
well, they're just open in general,
Oh,
like
I know.
honest and open and genuine.
I know. I know. It's
So the
really.
love that you have for them and they have for you, and
Yeah.
then their journeys has just been really inspiring for me. So
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it.
Good. Yay. Well, I sort of said in the intro here that today we're going to be talking about roles and narratives.
Okay.
I sort of mentioned that this is one of what I feel is the one of the most important lessons that you've taught me about relationships. Now
Oh,
I know what you're gonna say already. You didn't come up with this. I know you didn't come up with this.
right.
Where did you learn? Where did you first learn about these concepts?
Well, really in therapy,
Mm-hmm.
my therapist kind of has this wisdom and this method.
Mm-hmm.
It's called system centered therapy.
Mm.
And it's just really, really resonated with me and worked. So I've sort of, all these years, have integrated it now. So,
Right. Right. So this comes from that. Now, when we say a role in a narrative, what do those words mean?
well, there's survival roles, meaning like when we're growing up, we develop these roles in our family and in our origins to survive, either mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, right? And we discover that when we do a certain thing and act a certain way, we get what we want,
Mm.
or we get a response anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so in families, these roles are developed. I mean, you've heard of like the firstborn overachiever,
Right.
BTW.
Right.
Often the second is the rebel, because they're trying something different. And if that even came up when you interviewed Marcus.
Right,
I had
right.
to laugh, and I had to laugh when he said he had teachers who talked about you and your achievement, and it made him, he even said, be even more of the rebel. That's
Yeah.
a role. That's a role. And it doesn't mean if they're good or bad. It's not a judgment thing. It's just a way we respond. It's a thing that we take on to respond. And often it's a good thing to go into a role to get what you want. In my family of origin, I followed a rebel. So I was the peacemaker and the entertainer. And these are terrific skills that I developed. Highly developed.
Yeah.
Highly.
Right.
Where it becomes detrimental to me and where it moves into inauthenticity is when I'm responding in the present from a past survival role. And so it's not really useful in the present if I'm not conscious of it. And so oftentimes we have these roles that we've highly developed, and we don't even know we're going into them. And I swear, right? And we can all relate to that, right? And then I won't even know. I won't even be conscious. And later in an evening, say at a party, I'll leave and I'll feel sort of empty and sort of like, wow, I feel like I didn't really connect with somebody. And I realized it's because I was an entertainer all night, maybe because I was nervous or anxious or something. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if my goal was to share more of myself and authentic self, being the entertainer all night is not going to get that. I might get laughs and applause, but that's not real conversation. That's not real connection, is it?
Well, how do you know that it's not authentic? How do you know when?
Well, because I left the party.
You left when you're feeling that way. When you're feeling sort of.
It's right. When you check back with yourself, and that's what I try to do. That's consciousness. I cannot be conscious all the time. I believe none of us can. We go on all the time. But if I leave an event or I leave a conversation or I hang up a phone and go, why do I feel weird? Something's off. The inventory, and I go, wow. Was I in something? And I think back and I go, oh, I got triggered. Maybe when that student said something, and I got triggered into a role, and I couldn't get out of it, and then I miss a lot of things when we get triggered and we go into these survival roles. And so it's just a matter of trying to recognize them when we're in them. And I think one of the ways to recognize is just do inner inventory. How am I feeling? Am I feeling weird, yucky, disconnected, depressed? Like, what happened? Right. That's one way to do it. Another is we discharge from roles a lot. Like, for example, the rebellious role, right? That's a tough one because they discharge a lot, right?
What does that mean? They discharge?
Act out. They act out.
They act out.
They act out.
Right.
And so the acting out gets them in trouble. They go down this path, and it was all triggered from this role. And so when you've acted out, blown up, thrown something across the floor, whatever it is that you've acted out, said a joke that you shouldn't have, probably shouldn't have said in a department meeting. I've done that. I've been sarcastic in a department meeting, and I've gone, ooh, I'm acting out. That's discharge, right? I'm in a role. I often go in a role, in meetings and stuff,
I think we all do. I mean, even when we go into the workplace or a career or whatever, I think there's a certain role you go into in order to put up with the daily. When I was a server and a host, there's you put on a role that is not necessarily authentic because you have to get through the work shift.
That's right. And there's nothing, and I'm not saying that is conscious. You, Alex, know, and I know when I walk into a classroom, I'm a teacher.
Right.
I'm a teacher role.
Right.
records
Video.
videos. She talked a little bit about that she's when she was in advisor role, right? And in those roles where you're conscious, they work. They're supposed to. When you're a mother and you're in your mother role, it's when I bring the mother role into another relationship that it's like, and I do it unconsciously.
Right.
Caretaking, right? Often caretaking, people don't want that.
Right. People don't want to be treated like a child.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
And then you get the push away and you're like, why did they push me? And I went, oh, I went into caretaking.
Right.
Fixing their problem. Oh, I'll clean that up. I'll do blah 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 for you.
Right.
And that's a role, and people go, gosh, when you do that.
Now, how does that feed into the term narrative? When we talk about a narrative.
Okay, narrative is like sort of a story that you kind of make up in your head about something. And my friend Jill, who's done a lot of practice in Buddhism, I would say she's been a great teacher for me in this regard, is that she always asks, do you know this to be true? Is a great question to ask yourself when you've got a story in your head. Do you know this to be true? And you have to stop and go, do you have evidence? And we all make up stories and also predict. I'm a big terrible. Just like you start, I know what you're gonna say,
Yeah, right.
We jumped on another conversation. You said, I love to be the fortune teller and be right.
Oh, in another of our conversations.
Yeah.
I like to do that too. That's definitely something.
Right.
To be the fortune teller.
And it's a little bit, you have to be careful with that because it's a little bit of a story that you're telling yourself, and you can miss a lot of the present moment, and you can be making a lot of stuff up that isn't true. But what happens is we're relating to things in our head, and so we're missing what's actually happening.
Right. Well, I guess I was sort of thinking of a narrative as like, when somebody is like the black sheep of the family, or, there's sort of this story that everybody in the family sort of understands about this person.
Right.
And it's almost like they are stuck in a cycle.
Yes.
Maybe narrative's not the right word, but it's...
Well, that's a role. Black sheep is the role. And there's another great role that I just learned about called the Unidentified Patient.
What's that?
Meaning there's usually one person in the family that everybody feels sorry for, that is sort of maybe either sickly or just has always had a lot of trouble and problems. And so there's these huge narratives around the unidentified patient. And so the rules are different when it comes to that child in the family.
Yeah.
Right? It's, that's so-and-so, we've got to be careful.
Right.
Here he is da-di-da-di-da, or has this, or is anxious, or whatever. That's the and that's a role, and then the narrative. You're right. A story will come up, and what happens is in families is we want to keep everybody in their role.
Right.
And it's and believe me, I do too. And even though I've learned so much about it, I find myself doing the same thing.
Right.
And I think I referenced this, but with my little sister, we had a huge breakthrough when we were young, when I finally opened up, because I was the happy entertainer, right? And I finally opened up and said, I'm sad. And it brought my sister and I so much closer, because she was always holding the sad card. And what's so wonderful about letting go of these roles is that you can bring other people in and closer to you, because they're like, I can connect with you. It's so,
Right. Well, and is there a difference between a role that you take on and a role that's been assigned to you? I know that there's going to be sometimes some overlap, but you know, I think sometimes what you see, especially with people who go through self-help and they start learning this stuff, they try to get out of that role, and then once they go back to their family, once they go back to their workplace, once they go back to whatever dysfunctional relationship it is, those people still expect them to be that same person,
right,
and get upset when they're not.
That's right. They want to put them right
and
back.
And sometimes they find the people around you put you back in that role.
Well, nobody can put you back in that role. You participate.
Okay.
If you in it, you participate.
Okay, so what happens when people are
putting you in a role?
Well, as you said, I'd be taking it up, right? Is what you're saying. So say there's an attempt.
They try to.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's an attempt.
What it is there's an attempt to put you in your old role. Small example, a year or two ago when I was home, you know, I was to pick up the food for my father, and I was late. And I was shaking on the phone. Like, I felt like I was an 8-year-old girl. I was a bad girl. I was in trouble. And I felt this old role just wash over me. And I pick up the phone, and he starts talking to me like I'm a child, you know. And I knew it. And I went, well, and I just went, Dad, it's all going to be okay. And I thought, I'm in this childhood role. I just snapped out. He put me in the role. I took it up. But then I went conscious, and I went, Dad, it's going to be okay. So we eat at 6:30 instead of 6. We're all going to survive.
Right.
I'm on my way. I got to talking. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm on my way. So there was a repair. So I had to do the work to get myself out of that. And he may want to keep putting me into it, but I went, no, I am not going to be this child who's in trouble.
Right. Now, is there a difference between like a psychological role and like, you know, I'm always going to be your son. Right. So that's almost like
that's a relationship.
A relationship.
That's a relationship. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a difference between a relationship and a role.
Yeah. Right. I'm talking, and in therapy, they say it's useful to name the role.
Oh, okay.
And I've done that. Like, I might say I was in Shameful Girl when, you know, I was late for pizza. I took on the shameful little girl role.
Right. Well, I imagine that might be hard for some people where this is like not a regular, you know, they've never thought about roles or narratives before.
Oh, to name them, yeah.
To name them. What are some of... Yeah.
To name them is a way to start getting separated from them and to be able to see the role as outside yourself. It's a great tool. And then you can say, how do you feel for yourself that you got triggered into shameful little girl role? And I go, oh, it's kind of sad because I'm old now and I'm still carrying this and I don't need to.
Right.
You know? So it's kind of sad. And it's kind of funny now. I can laugh at it, but I can tell you at the time, I was shocked at how just taken back, just years and years. So funny.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Yeah, that's so funny. I mean, we've talked a little bit about some of my roles that I have taken on, such as the mouthpiece is one of mine.
Yeah, that's a great name for a role, the mouthpiece role.
Yeah. Where you take on the complaints of everybody else and you step up to be the one who voices it, who voices the concern and who confronts the problem.
Yep. And so therefore you're the one that gets then
and then I get the reprimand.
Groups love mouthpieces because they can all be rowing that rowboat with you. But you are up there going, oh no, you sit up front. And that's going to be a role that people are going to want to put you in all the time.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to work because it's a very useful role to have in a group.
Yeah, and that's a hard one for me too because I enjoy sticking up for other people. And I don't like complaining. And so, you know, like if there's a group where it's just talking about how terrible a situation or something is, it's like I hate that, you know?
Right. So you take it on. So see, it's fueled by the other thing that's useful with roles to get that separation is name them and then say what's fueling you to go into it. What's the fire underneath you that's triggering you? It sounds to me a little bit that you might be triggered by other people's pain.
Right.
And
right.
you have a certain level of difficulty with other people's pain, where other people, I know, for example, like your brother can go, oh, you got to fix that. You're in pain, go fix it. Go do something about it. Why are you talking to me? Which is a wonderful way to be, right?
Right.
Another wonderful, you're a very caring and compassionate person, and there's nothing wrong. Doctors and nurses and therapists, they're caring, compassionate people. There's nothing wrong with caring for other people and go being their advocate. Don't misunderstand me.
Yeah.
But when it's at your expense and you're triggered into it and you don't know you're doing it and you do it all the time and it's at your expense, that you're sort of the sacrificial, you go advocate for us.
Right.
So a way would be to get in touch with that fuel and then just ask yourself, am I willing to advocate for this group? Or is there a different path? And a different path might be, hey, can we go talk to the boss together? Are you willing to sign your name on this email too?
Right.
Right. I mean, those are simple examples.
No, I think tangible examples are good for people to sort of wrap their mind around, because it's a very abstract concept, and I think it's something that like takes a few years to really understand. And I think especially if you know somebody, or if there's somebody in people's families or friend groups where you can't understand why they're acting a certain way, it can help just to define it. And that awareness that you're talking about of awareness is also a very abstract woo-woo term, but it really is that taking a third eye and looking at the situation from a third perspective.
And Eckhart Tolle it talks about this, but he uses different terminology, but it's very similar.
Right.
That third eye, that I am not, you do his accent really well, but
I'm
not the person who
you are not the little girl.
Yes.
The little girl lives in you. Yeah. Yeah.
He's great.
Yeah, he's great. Go check him out. Then that reference will make sense.
Yeah. It's this same concept of the third eye, of coming out of it. And another red flag is, do you find yourself in repeated patterns over and over, and they're patterns you want to break?
Right.
And if you are constantly saying, but he this, but she that, and the he and the she people are all reprimanding you, so you constantly going into bad little girl. Well, you 50% of that.
Right.
Not free.
Right.
Just like you being the mouthpiece, that's up to you.
Right.
They're not doing this to you.
Right.
You are participating.
Do you think it's ever possible to be totally? Do you think it's possible to be totally free of all roles and all narratives?
Oh, I guess the Buddha was, and Jesus was.
Yeah, I guess that's like the goal.
So they say, but
yeah,
I'm nowhere near. But yeah,
right.
It'd be great. I mean, it's great to have moments of clarity, and you go, just like when the sky is beautiful,
Yeah. Well, I feel like that was a great introduction to roles and narratives.
Okay.
I hope that's useful for other people. Yeah. If anyone has questions about it, feel free to reach out to me or ask, message me, and I'll ask my mom, or whatever. Now, jumping to obsessions.
Yes.
Is there anything bringing you joy this week?
You're gonna love this.
Okay, I'm ready.
Quality QuaranTIME.
Oh no! Oh, stop! No! Pick something else. Pick something else.
I knew you would. But it's true. I binge watched it this week. But British television.
Yes.
The
Great.
BBC.
Yes.
Yeah, and just hearing British accents and Jane Eyre, watch Jane Eyre, and Pride and Prejudice. Just the escape. I love to escape to a different time and place, and the costumes and the props and the setting and the beautiful English countryside. It's just watch it.
Period pieces, when done well, are
the best.
Really great.
And the romance. I just love the romance.
Yeah. And what I love about it is the simplicity.
Yeah.
You know, it's very, and the understated, it's very understated.
Yeah, there's a lot of subtext. And this is a nod to my mother. My mother loved Masterpiece Theater and British, romance novels and the Brontes, and she loved all that. So, I think part of it is, my mom died in October. So I think part of it is just, I feel close to my mom,
Yeah.
And it's just a thing. It's kind of fun.
Right.
It's kind of nice.
Right.
Warm and fuzzy.
Warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thanks, Mom, for joining me.
Thank you, honey.
For some quality QuaranTIME. And we'll see how much longer this quarantine goes, because,
we will.
You could be back.
Well, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
Here I am. I'm on my comfy couch.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay. Bye, honey.
Okay. Bye. Thanks for tuning in to Quality QuaranTIME. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. See you next time.